I remember we were kind of jealous of like Dropbox because they had a slightly higher valuation than we did. But we raised $650K on a 2 million pre, to put that in perspective.
Wow.
So 2.65 posts, right? And that's one of the things that I bring to founders today. That perspective is, of course, founders are going to obsess over valuation. And we certainly did, just like everyone does. But, I think the big difference in founder outcomes isn't the valuation that you get at any given round. It's when you exit or you go public, did you raise a Series C or did you raise a Series G, right? It's the number of rounds that you end up raising determines your overall ownership. And, plenty of companies, got very big, very, in a very capital efficient way, didn't raise a ton of money, but, they just didn't have to raise that many rounds. Like Facebook's a great example. Like, Zuck has maintained like a huge amount of ownership because he didn't have to raise that. He did raise a lot of money in absolute terms, but he didn't raise, he built a lot of value with very little money, let's say. And you have other counterexamples of founders that, there's one just the other day that sold for $450 million and the founders didn't make a cent.
Oh, man.
You feel so bad about that, but then you look at how much they raised and they effectively raised the same amount of dollars that they sold for. And so their pref stack ate it all. But, it's just, I think capital efficient growth is how you build value as a founder, right? And that's not to say don't go big and shoot for the moon, because you should. But I like to say that when you don't get diluted when you raise money, you get diluted when you spend it inefficiently.
I was just about to say that company had to have just bled money, just irresponsibly.
Yeah. And it's really easy to do. Once you raise it and it's in your pocket and there's all this pressure on growth and it's really hard, you always want your growth to be growing and it's really hard to like make a financially prudent decision that causes your growth rates to go down. It feels like that's the start of a death spiral. There's all this pressure on you you feel like the employees are going to leave, the whole house is going to collapse. There's so much pressure to just say, hey, maybe a 2 or 3 year payback on sales and marketing is okay instead of an 18-month payback, right? And it's really hard to have the discipline to not spend the money that way.
Ryan Peterson of Flexport, who we were just talking to the other day, was saying that the day after his first big round that he raised, even though he wanted to be disciplined with the money, he's like, I spent $50,000 on turning a container into like this cool exhibit at a conference. Right, Carolyn? It was funny.
Yeah, it's just so tempting to spend that money when you have it. And it does take so much discipline not to.
Well, and then the employees, their perspective changes too. Like, I remember the first really nice office that we had and that we moved into. We built this huge office and I wasn't trying to make it that nice. And we were like pretty reasonable on all of our expenses. We made good choices on like cheap materials and, cost efficient choices. But the first day I walked into the office, I was like, oh shit, because it was really nice. And everyone, when they moved into that office, they're like, we fought as hard as we could against it, but people's perspective kind of changed. It was like, oh, we've made it. Like we're the big dog now.